Hi, the Ego Project members. We're so excited to have you with us. As a member, you're going to be, of course, getting deeper conversations between Cristine and I and our guests, as well, you're going to get all the dirt. I'm not going to lie to you.
Yeah, for sure.
We're gonna share. So if you're more of a voyeur, this yeah, really. I mean, that's how we learn, right? We learn from, we don't always have to, step on those, landmines ourselves. Sometimes we can learn from others and how they've navigated things as well.
Yeah.
And so, plus we're going to have other perks. We're going to
Mhm.
have workshops. We're going to have journal prompts. We're going to have tips and techniques for all of our topics. So thank you so much for being here. We're very excited. So,
Mhm.
and we're discussing detachment. So we're going to pick up where we left off from the episode. If you haven't listened to that, go ahead and check it out. But Cristine,
Yes.
let's go. Let's do this thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Detachment.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where do you struggle with
Well,
detachment?
I have to say, I mean, it definitely has been something like it's rooted in my childhood stuff for sure. As I think most most people who need to work on detachment, that's where it's going to come from. So, um, I think we're frozen. There we go.
We were for all I said, where do you struggle with detachment? That was it.
There it is. I just detached right there. That was probably more disassociating on Zoom's part.
And that was disassociation. And this
that,
is detachment.
that wasn't a conscious choice.
I'm tempted to leave that in. That actually
I think we should. I think we should. Um, but yeah, I mean, I have to say, like with detachment, I mean, it's for me, it's definitely rooted in childhood. There was, a lot of what I experienced in childhood was that, my value and worth was contingent on, how the adults, felt or how they perceived me. And, so much of my ego development was from that lens of my value and worth and sense of self is contingent on how other people feel about me and how other people show up for me. So as an internalizer, I became very, very self-sufficient but also very people pleasing. And where that this codependent type of way of operating through relationships led me into where I would say most of my detachment issues kind of stemmed within relationships and just how I was kind of moving through life. So much of my sense of self was tied to how my relationship looked or what decisions my partner was making, and how they were treating me and how they were treating themselves was something that I felt this responsibility. And so I would find myself just so consumed with them, and shifting and changing my needs and wants based upon trying to get a response from them. Like if I can, and that's what, if you got this if then statement going on, you need to work on some detachment, right? So there was a lot of like, if my partner will do this, then that means, we'll be good. Or if I can, change and shift myself and what my standard is, then I'll be accepted and things will feel more stable. So for sure, in my own experience, that early childhood experience was developing me to have a lot of codependency, especially within relationships. And I would say also in my work, like there was a lot of like attachment with the work that I did. It's kind of why I became probably a workaholic during some parts of my life, and a lot of detachment work around that, which I have to say was, I was able to do that work with a lot more ease than I was with my relationships. But when I did that and I saw the fruits of that detachment work, like with being able to manifest with so much more power and with a lot more excitement and ease, rather than it feeling like, I'm trying to manifest these things or I'm trying to develop this and I was able to really see the fruits of detachment within manifestation, which led me to do some work within my attachment issues within relationships, and detachment in other people making choices for themselves. And I have to say, like, I'm at a pretty good place right now with detachment, because I think I've been able to see it now, see it work in such a beautiful way through many different areas of my life, that I feel like I'm doing pretty well in practicing that to some extent. So
Oh, that's
now,
great.
what about
Thank
you?
you for sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. As I was preparing for our conversation today, I was really reflecting on the word detachment. And yeah, of course, the confusion that people have about detachment. And then I was thinking about reflecting on how I misunderstood detachment for so many years in my life, where I truly thought detachment meant walking away.
Yeah. Right.
I really thought that that was what I was meant to do. And so I would run into a situation where, I'm trying to get my needs met, and it's not happening the way I thought it should, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then I would assume that meant, well, I have to walk away. I have to let this situation go, this
Right.
person go. And I lost a lot of one time,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Trying to make things work in a certain way. And I also lost some valued relationships
Yeah.
because I didn't understand that sometimes detaching from our expectations of what they're supposed to be doing gives
Yeah.
space and freedom within, so that everyone can calm down.
Yes. Wow. That is such a great reflection, because detachment really is a beautiful gift to a healthy relationship, right? Like it's detachment isn't something that just shows up in an unhealthy relationship. It's something that must be practiced in a healthy relationship, because you're trusting that person to have that agency and autonomy, and that, when they have that and you have that, then you're able to come to connection and really, really enjoy the richness of that freedom. So that's such a great point, to recognize this isn't something that, like, when you recognize detachment is needed, that it means you have to walk away, because it's just showing you, here's a really beautiful thing that can really grow this relationship.
And we've learned so much with our attachment styles, our
Yeah.
attachment patterns, right? And I see people in my life, with avoidant attachment styles, which I have, that tendency as well,
Yeah.
where that is their MO, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's not going the way that I wanted, or this person hurt my feelings, or they did something, and they completely detach, and they think that they're doing it as detachment,
Right. Right.
detachment. And in reality, they didn't leave space for someone to make right.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't leave space for someone maybe to reflect.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't leave space for someone to, also have their voice.
Yeah.
Or to make amends.
Right. So what you're seeing, even in avoidance, even in that avoidant tendency, that is a reaction. That's not a response, right? And detachment is really about responding. It's not about reacting. So I think that is a great point to bring about, that walking away, or removing yourself from a situation, or not having this conversation, or blocking somebody, that is not detachment, because there has to be a space for you to have this emotional freedom. And for that avoidant attachment style, it's hard for them to tap into, what are my actual feelings around this, and detachment requires you do that.
Thank you for saying that about feelings, because that's what I've realized, that when you are practicing healthy detachment, you have to feel all the feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think people think that it means, well, I don't feel anything. about that person or that situation, right? But you have to process through there. You may end up in that place where you're neutral, but you have to go through the process of feeling the feelings. And, our culture has kind of taught us that, like, well, it's all logic, right? And it's like, no, we're feeling beings that think.
Right.
That's, that's what we are. And so I think kind of understanding the languaging and what it means. So I know for me, when I'm just choking a situation.
Yes.
That's the way it feels.
It does.
Yeah, it feels like I just got my neck on a situation. Like, I will make this work. I want it this way. I am so attached to outcome. And that is, I need to figure out what I need to be doing to become healthily detached from the situation. And usually that requires me to stop everything that I'm doing. Stop pushing the boulder up the hill. Let it roll back down. Stop still.
I love your phrase. You said, I need, right? Like, that in and of itself has this like vibration of frantic or almost staticky, like your energy is just being projected into somebody else's frame. And that's a really good indicator that you are in a space that you really need to practice detachment so that you can see what it is really. Because the statement, I need, there are very few things we need in that moment from somebody else that is authentically true. And so for us to catch ourselves in that, like, I need you to understand this, or I need you to be quiet. Like, I hear parents say that all the time. Like, really, do you really need your kid to be quiet? Or is it that your nervous system is just at such a place right now that you're not processing the chaos of childhood, right? Like, you can't be present with that. This isn't about you needing this person to be compliant. It's that you need better self-care, or you need, time to like regulate your emotions, or all of which you can provide for yourself, not an external source of it, right? So I think that's a really good phrase that you brought up in terms of being a red flag or an indicator, that check engine light of, I feel like I'm projecting here. I'm looking for this external soothing or external meaning to be reflected back to me.
Thank you for that. And thank you for picking up on that languaging, because that's how, those are our tells, right? For me, well, this person should be doing this. Well, should they?
Right.
I don't know if they should be, I try to use should. Yeah. So, thank you. I also recognize that some people think that becoming healthily detached means that you just don't care about them. And to me, being healthily detached from someone, to me, I can't imagine more unconditional love.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Because then we get to actually see and hear and love somebody authentically for who they truly are. If we are attached to an outcome or an understanding, or if we're attached to them being a reflection of our needs, then we're not seeing this person with any kind of authenticity. We can't love them authentically. Now, some people, when we detach, we will see and hear them, and we may have to make a choice that, like, I can love you at a distance, I can't love you in relationship. That may be the choice that is made, and that's okay. But yes, like, there is no better like gift to a relationship than to be able to give that detachment to them from the lens of a loving, healthy partner or a coworker or whatever. So you can actually see them and hear them and let them be their authentic self. So if we choose to be in a loving relationship with them, we're doing so from being able to really, really witness them.
Iyanla Van Zant has an amazing quote, and I'm going to paraphrase it here. You don't get to tell people how to love you. You get to watch how they're loving and decide if you want to be loved like that.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that's being healthily detached, right? Like to be able to look at that and say, that's not the way I need to be loved. So I'm going to release you.
And
Yeah.
the beautiful thing about detachment is when we detach and somebody else detaches, and they live in a place of like healthy detachment, what you may have perceived as like, this is how I feel loved, these are my love languages or whatever, that tends to not be as much of an issue, even if that's not that person's typical, right? Because you're moving into a place of reciprocity, of giving and receiving. And because there is this like permission to be yourself, you want to give and you want to receive in such harmony, that attachment tends to be like like you said, what is choking a relationship out is our projection of it needing to be, or it should be like this. And that can be really, really harmful to what could be a really healthy relationship if we just allow it to if we can come back to ourselves and be able to navigate it from our frame, and not necessarily it needing to be constantly interconnected.
I think when we're trying to force it to look a certain way, we're not accepting what is. And, I tell people when they're like, well, it shouldn't be happening like this. I'm like, it is happening like this.
Right.
It's the exact way it should be happening, right? There's that should again. So you need to ground into the present moment of what it actually is.
Correct.
And then detach from what you expected it to be. And that's where your power lives.
Yes, there's so much power there. So much power. It's the same thing with manifesting. We say, I want to manifest this in this time, in this way. We're putting so much of our own projection, our own meaning into it, rather than just being very clear and like this is what I want to experience. This is how I want to feel in a relationship. This is how I want to feel with my finances. But knowing that I can hold power within myself to see when the opportunity arises, not that it has to be here or there or with this person. And I think that when you can, especially within relationships, if you can detach, like you can see that maybe something's not a really good fit for you, or maybe you can see that some dynamic is not healthy, and that you have to step away or walk away, right? Not in avoidance, but in detachment.
Right.
You're doing so from a totally different vibration. It's really a vibration of love of self, love for that person, that they need to go and continue their journey, just like you need to go and continue your journey. And that's where there's space to grow and to become more present and more grounded and see it for what it is. And there isn't any judgment there. Like there really isn't any space when you detach to put judgment there. It's just that it's not what you need for yourself.
Oh, beautifully put. So what are some tips and techniques that you would offer people on how to practice healthy detachment?
Well, I would say the number one thing is to recognize that whether it's frustration, bitterness, anger, whatever is that emotion that is arising, and you can feel yourself saying those things like, I need this person to, or they should be doing this. Whenever you feel your energy almost expanding into their decisions, their relationship, them, right? Like whenever you feel yourself, you can almost feel yourself going into their energy field. That is your first indicator to recognize, what is this feeling? Is it anger? Is it frustration? Is it discontent? Okay, recognize the feeling. And then ask yourself, what is it that I believe this feeling means about me? Because that's really what this comes down to is when somebody else makes these decisions or has this behavior or says these things, we believe it has meaning to us. We are attached to it, right? And ask yourself, what is that? What am I thinking this means about me? What do I feel that this means about me? And then tell yourself a truth statement. Be like, so and so's decision to, um, you know, go and make this poor choice is a reflection of their wounding, not mine. And I have to allow them to make this decision themselves. And then react, rather than react, respond to that person with I statements. I don't feel like this is going to be a healthy space for me to be in. And so for myself, out of care and love, I'm making this decision, not you. We all know the you statements, especially from relationship, you've been in any kind of relationship therapy or co-working, coaching or whatever. We know that you statements project onto other people. So being very, very mindful that when you do respond, you're using I statements. And then really, really practice on giving yourself that withdraw, intuitive time after something like that. Don't go continue to talk to somebody about the situation over and over and over. Those are neural pathways that we want to travel to reinforce and validate ourselves, right? We don't have to validate how we feel and what we're experiencing. That is intrinsically ours. We don't have to perseverate on it. But we also don't need to have external validation around it. And so once you're kind of clear on, what it is that you're thinking, that you're feeling, from that perspective, like whether or not that relationship needs any kind of like repair or if it needs any type of attendance, do that from a place of neutrality, not from a place of feelings.
Oh, thank you. That was so good. One technique I like to use with my coaching clients is especially those that get very attached to outcome.
Yeah.
And, I work with creatives, so we work within the creative field. One practice I have them do is to buy some paints and to paint the worst picture they've ever painted.
Yeah.
Yes. And then share it with me, which is the hard part.
Yeah.
And with them, with the awareness that they are doing something that is going to be bad, so that their idea of the outcome, they're not attached to it. Like they have the freedom. And to me, that's where play and art and creativity, play around with it. And I find so often that we are so, in such a time deficit.
Yeah.
And so we feel like absolutely everything that we do must have a payoff. Yes. And where, that feeling of spaciousness, it's where we find detachment. Yes. And more play, more art, more creativity, more stillness, all of these things, stillness where you're not hustling.
Yeah. And I think that's when you take that intuitive withdrawal is where you're detaching from the hustle, from the meaning, from the projection, from the shoulds. And that's where you can kind of hear yourself again. It's where you hear that intuitive voice of wisdom that really is letting us know, like, our value and worth is not contingent on any outcome. It is inherent to us. And we can remember that when we're in play, when we're creating. Like, we do hear that, but then we show back up to this attachment of productivity or attachment of payoff or attachment of external validation. And we go back into that neuro pathway. But yes, I think the more you can play, the more you can be in creative space during that withdrawal, is the more you're reminded that we need to be patient with ourselves.
Yes. And I think if you're new to this and you're hearing like, oh, I've been really attached to a lot of different things, like trying to force things to happen and you being angry at other people because they're not doing what I want them to do. Yeah. Situations aren't turning out the way that I want. start small.
Mhm.
You know, maybe if someone doesn't call you when you expect them to,
Yeah.
detach from that.
Mhm.
Maybe
Mhm.
they're just busy. You
Yeah.
know, maybe they didn't have the time, maybe they forgot without
Mhm.
a story behind it.
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't matter. I'm not
Yeah.
important. They think, you know, whatever they think, they think, they think. Stop trying to mind read, right? And stay in your own energy. Feel your disappointment if you're
Mhm.
going to feel it, but don't attach a story to it.
Yes.
Will
Yes.
help you start practicing healthy detachment on a small scale. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's like, even sometimes, like I tell people who may get overly emotional around things that they may see on social media, especially during a political season, or, a belief system from a family member or something. They may be like, well, I don't care. Like, that's so and so from over there, but they're still talking about, like, oh, did you see this post? I can't believe this post. Or did you hear about that celebrity? That celebrity said this, that, and the other. There is still, even if it's not directly connected to you in relationship, there is some belief system that you're holding that is telling you that if somebody has this belief, it means that you're wrong. And what would that mean if you're wrong? Right? So even if it feels like this thing that's somewhat much more external than in a relationship, understand there's still some meaning there that you need to take a closer look at. And those would be some of those smaller things. Like, what is it, when I feel bad when I see this, what's my attachment to this belief? Even though it's very small and it's just something I scroll past, what's this feeling that I'm getting about it? Rather than maybe jumping to, like, your intimate partner that you're trying to control everything they're doing. That's a hard place to start.
It is. Yeah. Cause that stuff's really deep in entrenched.
Mhm.
Yeah. 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 All right. Thank you so much. Thank you, members, for joining us today. Is there anything else you want to add about detachment?
No, I'm just, start practicing it, start, trusting yourself in it, but most of all, be patient in it.
Okay. All right. Thank you once again, members. We're so happy to have you with us. Make sure to check your emails so that you can see more information coming to you about what we're offering. It is new, but we're growing, and we're so happy to have you here. And give us some ideas that you want to really hear us talk about, and dig into questions that you have about the ego and emotions and feelings and relationships and
All the
etc.
things.
So
Yeah, all the things.
all things ego. All right. Thank you, everyone. We will see you next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye.